Hey everyone, welcome back to Dan91's garage. This week we're continuing work on the turbo log manifold that we've been making for the Toyota Starlet. So we've got the turbo and we've got the manifold. We now need to join the two together so we can actually get some of the exhaust gases to spin the turbine and provide some boost. So I'm going to go and put my big boy pants on so we can chop a hole in the manifold that we've been making for the past few weeks. Wish me luck and I'll see you in a sec. So there's a few ideas. Obviously this is a 1.5 inch schedule 40T, so these are 1.25, so this is the next size up. Unfortunately they don't do a 1 3/4, they go straight to 2 inch after that, so we'll go with that. So the idea is to use this basically as a saddle, so I'm going to slit it down both sides, so I've got half, then this half, frustratingly again, because the inside of this should be the same size as the outside of that, but like I say, because the inside bore of this isn't quite the same size as this, it's a tiny bit smaller. If it was bigger we'd be fine, but I'm gonna have to basically sand this out, but it'll be a lot easier to do that once I've slit it. So I'm gonna cut the bottom off of this, then I'll have like a saddle essentially with my outlet pipe, then we can pop him on there. So probably just gonna dump that on there and weld that fully inside there, and then cut an angle on it so it then flares out to meet the original size of this, that's then gasket matched to the turbo. Yeah, I am going to have to dress these one back, but that's just simply because I've got to wrap this over it, and without that it won't lay flat and I won't be able to then weld this to this. So there we are, we have a plan, so let's get stuck in. Okie doke, so time for a bit of a measure up. So 1.5 inches, that's 48ish on the outside, about 39 up the inside, so we've got a reasonable amount to take out of that to get it to fit over our 42. So yeah, that's not exactly great. So 48.4 comes down to 24.2. 81.6 take 24.2 gives us 57.4. so we'll use the top of this pipe outlet as our datum, and then we want 57.4 down the side here. Close enough for this manifold. So there we have it, chopped in half. Okie doke, so chopped him down, as you've seen, linished him flat. So it's pretty square this way and this way compared to the bottom surfaces. Obviously if you look inside, there's sort of like a nice sort of funnel where it's obviously going to help divert and flow the gases more towards the outlet for the turbo, so that's good. What I think I'll do is I'll shorten this up a bit because it is a bit long. So if we have a quick measure up on the back, obviously to the sort of funnel area, it's roughly 20 odd mil. Just eyeball it. Yeah, it's about 20 odd mil. So we've got about 20 odd mil to there, and obviously that's where we'd want the hole in this part of the tube. So if the opening in this part of the tube is essentially following where the funnel of this begins. So that's the saddle outlet all cut down. So I shortened it up on both ends. I think in the end I took off about 15 mil off of each end. So we've got at least sort of 5 mil of flat left on the saddle area in here. Just seemed to sort of be a nice size for it to go on and still have a reasonable amount of meat to weld to, basically, with being nice and compact so I can shuffle him about. So yeah, obviously you can see how thick the wall is, so I can scoop some of that material out. This at its thinnest is 3.5 mil, and this is about 5 or 6 mil on the wall. So yeah, nearly 5 mil there, 5 mil across the top there. So the top outlet here, that's about 3.75. so if I can take this down to about 3.5-ish, it should sit on there, and then we've got a nice wall thickness that's still nice and strong. We're going to scoop some of this out, chop the corners off till it looks pretty, and then we'll have a nice little outlet for our turbo that we can set up anywhere we want, mark it on the tube where the turbo's going to go, then take it off and weld it on the bench, and that'll be the safest way of doing it, I think. So we're all scooped out now. Managed to fit it up quite nicely to this spare piece of pipe that I've got, so doesn't look half bad. So we've managed to maintain minimum of 3mm right at the very edge, and it gets bigger as we go in. So if I do trim this down a bit more, it'll only get thicker back to our 3.5mm that I wanted. So that's cool. So I've marked it up with some pen on the inside for this sort of last bit. Then you wrap your test pipe in some sandpaper. Obviously rub that through there. Takes off any of the pen marks on the high spots, and then you can see the parts you've got left to work. I've just been finishing it basically with a half round file, which clearly needs to be demagnetized, but yeah, just took the worst of it out with some flap discs, angle grinders and die grinders, and just hand fitting it basically with a half round. So we're going to need to trim down the turbo saddle outlet, and I want to take about 10mm off of this as a starting point. So I got this flange, which is 10mm thick, wrapped electrical tape around the outside of it, then trimmed it off with a Stanley knife. So now I've got a layer. So now this layer of tape around the outside is 10mm thick, so I can peel that off, wrap it around the neck of this, and then I'll have a nice line to draw around or cut to. It's exactly 10mm from this edge. So I've decided to stop messing about and just tack the thing together so we can have a proper trial fit basically. I've been trying to hold the turbo on here, and every time you sort of get it in place and try and measure or check any clearances or anything, this can slip and turn and twist, and the turbo itself can twist on there, so you're never sure if you're actually measuring the same thing in the same position. Plus sort of like bruised up my arm quite badly, sort of resting quite a heavy turbo against the bumper bar brace on the car, so we're not doing that anymore. So I've marked out roughly where I think it should go. I'm going to drop him on there. Obviously I've marked this up as top, center of this in the center of the manifold. So we're going to set that round to the correct position, tack it in 4 places. So this will be attached to the actual manifold, and then we'll put the flange plate on top of that so we can attach the turbo. Here we go then, so let's try and get the turbo in. Extreme close up, there we are. Ooh, if I'd remembered the nut. There we go. Oh, so far so good. And I am putting that on without a gasket to sort of simulate the grinding we're going to do. So we're going to obviously take some material off grinding to finish this off basically. So yep, I mean that goes on there, so that's something. Stick a few nuts on it quickly. So there we go. Plenty of clearance for the oil filter. Let's redirect the light somewhere. There we go. So plenty of clearance for the oil filter. Let's just take that out and see. Yeah, I mean there's about 10mm gap here between this and the compressor housing, so that's cool. So we know we can change the oil filter, not a problem. Awesome. And then out the front here, you've got plenty of room down the side. See, we can't really get much closer to the engine and still get a pipe off here for an air filter. So looks like we're going to have to 90 down and stick the air filter down here somewhere, or go under the wing. I don't think there's not enough room through here really to pass a pipe. The other alternative is to come up and over, but that's one hell of a tortured path when we could just basically 90 or 45 down and essentially stick it down here. I don't want it too lower than down here really, otherwise it's going to be in danger of sucking up water. But yeah, all things considered, not bad. We got clearance for our actuator. That's not too bad. Although, to be fair, this pipe may get in the way of the intercooler shenanigans, but currently the compressor outlet face is down and it's well within the cross member at the front here, so that's cool. So yeah, I think we're there basically. That's pretty much it. Can't really go any higher, can't really go any further back, can't really go any lower. Now we get the immense fun of taking this off and chopping into the manifold, I guess. So 3, 2, 1, snappity snap. And now we can see the witness line that we scribed to where the outer edge of it has to be. And now I've already had one go at it, but it was way too close. So now we get to scribe a line 5mm inside this to cut our little window out. Okie dokie, so cut all the way around within our sort of 5mm perimeter and left a bit of a gap as well. So ended up using the Dremel with the small cut-off wheels, obviously, because the bigger the cut-off wheel, the further you're going to try and cut through the tube, and then when you're trying to cut the smaller slots, you end up sort of cutting well into bits you don't want to cut into. So yep, it's taken me sort of this many cut-off discs, and anyone that knows Dremel knows they're not cheap. But anyway, we're about ready to pry the top off. Poor manifold, there it is. So yeah, that's one heck of a lot of material to cut through with a little Dremel. He's very, very hot. Anywho, he did the job, did me proud, and now you have a big old hole in the manifold, so that's cool. Now we obviously need to tidy these edges up back to the correct line, but yeah, looking pretty good in there as well. You can see decent amount of penetration there from the welding, so yeah, happy with that. So yeah, now we can actually get the exhaust gases out through to feeding the turbo. So there we are, welded on the turbo saddle, and I'll be honest, I think my welds are improving slightly. So compare this sort of stuff to this area here, just seemed a bit easier when it's all made up. Sort of brace yourself off the back of this and then sort of roll your hand backwards over it. Again, it's not the best stuff in the world, but it shows improvement, and the only way you get better at doing stuff is to actually get on and do it yourself. So now we get to put back on our little 5mm spacer piece that then sets the depth here, so this surface will be 5mm sub flush from here, or basically halfway through the middle of this plate essentially. So that goes on there. Then we need to twist it around to make it the right angle for the turbo. Tack it on underneath, and then we'll be ready to weld it. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, happy with that stage of it. Got some decent colour on the inside as well. So on to the next bit. So I slightly modified the lower downpipe flange weld fixture. Essentially 2 of the holes already lined up with the TD04 turbo flange, and I just banged another hole in here next to this other one. Now I can bolt down the flange and weld across the back. I don't know if I'm going to get a full weld all the way around, but I should get at least sort of 3/4 of it split over the 2 sides. So this will obviously help to not only hold this straight while I'm trying to weld, so it doesn't tip over and screw anything up, and that way it'll absorb some of the heat out of it and hopefully stop this flange warping too badly. So now I've welded the outlet pipe on, I wanted to check nothing had shifted before I finally weld the flange to it, because last thing you want to do is that's off by a degree or two and then it doesn't fit again. But thankfully now it's all assembled back on the engine. The turbo itself That's clocked up, so the flange is actually pretty vertical, so that's good. So we know the turbo's not sort of pointing up or down. There's still enough clearance out the front for the air filter. I've taken the oil filter on and off, and that's fine. And again, double checked here. So when we set that vertical on the cross member, we've got clearance here to the compressor housing for an intercooler, things like that. Basically, there's enough clearance through here for the downpipe. This is sort of worst case scenario, but I'm going to heat wrap it anyway, so that'll go around there. There isn't a huge amount more room you can. Obviously this will twist forward a touch, so we can twist that pipe sort of more vertically up here. This pipe will obviously swing round that way and then be chopped off at an angle to go down, almost like a weird sort of diagonal question mark, to then go and join up with the flange down here at the bottom. Yeah, this is the stage where it's a lot of taking things off, putting them back on, adding turbos, then you end up waiting for a pipe at the front to check your air filter's going to fit again, stuff like that. So this is the time consuming part, but that's perhaps why this video is about a week late. But at the end of the day, I don't want to rush it, so yep, we'll carry on. My name's Dan, this is Dan91's Garage. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode.